Hello, Augies Worldwide. I'm Dave Kassler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another episode of Ask Dave. Got a very interesting question about a touchy situation from a POTA, or Parks on the Air activator. And he has questions about using wire antennas. Now, not every national park or state park or local park is going to have trees, but a lot do. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to attach your wires to these trees? Now, when I was just out of college, I had a couple friends who were hams, and we'd go operate portable up in the national forest near Mount Gleason in Southern California. And we would happily attach our antennas to trees, no problem. And rangers would come by, and we'd talk and so on, and did not have a problem. Times have changed. People have gotten really picky about their trees. And so attaching anything to a tree, whether temporarily or permanently, can become an issue. Now, one school of thought says it's easier to gain forgiveness than permission, but I'm not sure that applies here, because if the rangers issue you a ticket, it can sting your pocketbook pretty bad. So best to find out in advance from the rangers what exactly you're allowed to do with these trees. Because trees, well, let's just say a lot of tree huggers become rangers. And I know when I lived in Florida, we had this beautiful tree in our backyard that covered the whole backyard. I loved that tree. And coming out to California, we had nothing like it. Here we have pinyon pines, which are grown pretty tall. I have no problem wrapping a wire, or not a wire, but a nylon rope around them, or a piece of paracord or something like that, to use them as a guy stays for antennas. But it is possible they will probably not want you penetrating the tree's bark, meaning no pegs or screws or anything like that to hold up an antenna, because when you take that out, it provides an entry point for insects to get into that tree. Putting like a hose or something around a tree on a temporary basis may work, because that won't bother the tree too much, but if it's left in place, it can. In some cases, if you do that in a small tree, the big tree will grow around the thing that you leave there, which could actually leave a weak point in the wood and cause the tree to come down many years later. There's an old story that's told about a teenager, a lazy teenager on a farm, who had a I guess, I don't know, they call them an adze or something like that. It's like the head of a hatchet. And you use that to bang into wood to split wood. And he left it sitting in a little spot on a tree between two big branches, and left it there because he was lazy. 30 years later, he came home to find out that after a windstorm, part of the tree had come down, and he went out and looked at it. And right in the middle of it, right square in the middle, was that piece of metal. And it had caused a weak point in there. And then, of course, you know, when you tell that story, you can talk all about responsibility and little things that can bother you later and whatnot. But the point is, I would recommend that you get prior permission from whoever's in charge of the park before doing anything to a tree. Okay, and that may require getting a permit. If the ranger gives you permission to do it, try and get that permission in writing. Okay, so if somebody catches you doing that, you've got permission. That helped me once. It used to be many years ago that if you were going to operate portable away from home, you needed prior permission from the FCC. And it comes in written form, and I used that more than once to show to law enforcement people that I had every right to be there. After all, the FCC is a federal government agency. Of course, it had nothing to do with the national forests that owned the land, but we made it through there. So you can put wire antennas up. One of the problems is getting them high enough. If you use a slingshot over the trees, there's no guarantee that you can get all of your rope back down, because it can snag somewhere in the tree, and you can in fact damage the tree if you pull the thing down. And the rangers don't want stuff like this hanging around in the trees. It's a problem for wildlife. It's a problem for the tree. It can swing around at the wrong time or come down at the wrong time and pile up in the ground and cause a tripping hazard. I would recommend probably that you might look at antennas that are freestanding, like the buddy pole or a mag loop or an inverted V or something like that, that it will not affect the trees. Now, some parks will not even want you to put stakes into the ground. This is because a lot of the western parks, for example, have shale type rock on top. If you try to put a stake through it, it starts to break it up and it becomes an erosion point. So you might take an old tire, something like that, and then tie your rope to the old tire. Maybe put a couple rocks in the tire to keep it there and use that as an anchor point or something like that. Anything to avoid damaging the scenery. Now, you have to understand this about rangers. They're always right, even when what they say doesn't make sense. Okay? So just remember that. Don't argue with the ranger about what's best for the park or anything like that. The ranger, being a federal employee, is considered by law to be an expert in what he or she does. There's a lot of she's in rangering too. And do not try anything other than yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, thank you, ma'am, thank you, sir, and so on, and do that sort of thing. I realize that can put a crimp into an individual POTA activation, but better to do it in such a way that the National Park Service doesn't rebel against POTA. We don't want that to happen. We want POTA to put forth the best face of ham radio, because very often these activations are public. So there you have it. If you'd like to help support this channel financially, you certainly can. Go to patreon.com/KE0OG or go to dcastler.com/support for other ways that you can support this channel. Also, please subscribe, click like, and until we next meet, 73.